His death did not feel like a scene. It felt like something being ripped out of the story before we were ready to let it go. Everyone who read When He Was Wicked knew this moment would come. When He Was Wicked made it clear years ago that John Kilmartin's fate was sealed. But knowing the ending on paper is nothing compared to watching it unfold in Bridgerton Season 4 Part 2. The show did not rush it. It did not dramatize it with loud music or chaos. Instead, it let the silence do the damage. And somehow, that made it even worse, because the quiet is where the truth settles in. The quiet is where you realize this is not just a twist. This is the end of a love story. Episode 6 begins so gently that you almost forget what is coming. John is not portrayed as fragile or fading. He is steady, soft-spoken, present. That is what makes the entire sequence unbearable. There are no dramatic warnings, no visible illness taking over, just small, almost invisible hints that something is shifting beneath the surface. The jigsaw puzzle scene is the first crack in the glass. Francesca smiling, John focused, patient as always. And then she says it. This is the last piece. It is such an ordinary line, something anyone could say without thinking. But in that moment, it lands differently. It feels symbolic, like the closing of something bigger than a puzzle, like their life together has quietly reached its final corner. The camera lingers just long enough for us to feel it, that subtle tightening in the chest, that instinct that tells you this happiness is temporary. The writers knew exactly what they were doing. They placed joy in our hands and then let us realize how fragile it was. And then comes the doorway. John standing there before going to bed. He turns back, looking at Francesca and Michaela. There is pride in his expression. There is warmth. But there is also something else, something almost reflective, as if he is memorizing the sight of them, as if he already understands that this is the last time he will see them together like this. It does not feel accidental. It feels intentional. His gaze lingers just a second too long. His smile feels just slightly heavier. It is not dramatic. It is not obvious, but it is enough to make your stomach drop. Because in that look, there's acceptance. From that moment on, the air changes. Even the lighting feels softer, quieter. Francesca is still lighthearted. She is still in love. She is still living inside a future that we already know is about to shatter. That dramatic irony is what makes the next scene almost impossible to watch. When she enters the bedroom the next morning, there is no fear in her step, no hesitation. She is simply a wife waking her husband, calling his name gently, expecting a sleepy response. John. The first time, it is affectionate. John. The second time, there is confusion. And then comes the silence. The silence stretches too long, the kind of silence that makes your heart start pounding before your brain catches up. You can see it happen on her face, the slow shift from amusement to uncertainty, from uncertainty to dread. She moves closer, she touches him, and in that instant, everything changes. There is no dramatic scream at first, no immediate collapse, just disbelief. Her voice softens instead of rising. She keeps saying his name like repetition might bring him back, like if she says it enough times, he'll answer. That's what makes it real. Grief does not always explode. Sometimes it freezes you in place. Sometimes it makes you quiet. And the way Francesca processes that moment feels painfully honest. Hannah Dodd does not overplay it. She lets the horror settle slowly, visibly. Her breathing changes. Her eyes widen just slightly. And you can see the exact second she understands that this is not sleep. This is death. The show does not cut away quickly. It forces us to stay there with her, to sit in the stillness of that room, to feel the weight of a life that ended without warning. John Kilmartin was never the loudest character in the Bridgerton world. He was not dramatic, he did not demand attention, but the moment the news leaves that bedroom, everything changes. Grief in private is suffocating, but grief inside a family as large and tightly bound as the Bridgertons becomes something else entirely. It becomes heavy. It settles into every corner of the house. It lingers in the hallways. It dims the light. When the family gathers, there are no loud outbursts at first, just stunned faces, disbelief moving from one sibling to the next. No one quite knows where to stand or what to say, because how do you react to something that feels so sudden, so unfair? John was not just Francesca's husband. He had quietly woven himself into their world. He had become part of their dinners, their conversations, their futures. And now there's an empty space where he should be. Violet's reaction is especially painful to watch. Violet Bridgerton is no stranger to loss. She has already buried the love of her life. Watching her face as she processes John's death feels like watching old wounds reopen. This is not just grief for a son-in-law. It is memory. It is trauma resurfacing. It is Edmund all over again. And you can see it in her eyes, that faraway look, that fragile composure she tries to hold together for her children. She knows what widowhood does to a woman. She knows the loneliness, the silence, the way the world keeps moving even when yours has stopped. That knowledge makes her fear for Francesca even more. Eloise and the others try to be strong, but their tears betray them. Eloise Bridgerton has always been outspoken, always questioning society's expectations, but in this moment, words fail her. There's nothing clever to say about death, no argument to win against it. The house itself feels different, quieter. Even the servants move more gently, as if sound itself would be disrespectful. And then there is Michaela. Her grief is different, not louder, not smaller, just different. She sits alone at one point, completely drained, her back against the wall, staring at nothing. It is one of the most honest depictions of grief in the entire episode, because sometimes sorrow does not look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like exhaustion, like your body has given up trying to process what your heart cannot accept. Michaela does not wail, she does not collapse in anyone's arms, she simply sits there, hollowed out. That image stays with you. The show takes its time here. It does not rush to the funeral. It allows us to see how death ripples outward, how it touches every sibling differently. Benedict steps forward in a way that feels natural but powerful. Benedict Bridgerton is often portrayed as artistic, a little detached, moving to the rhythm of his own world. But here he becomes steady, grounded, present. He does not try to fix anything. He does not speak over Francesca. He simply stays close. Watching him observe her pain without forcing her to respond shows a kind of emotional intelligence that feels deeply mature. And that becomes even more clear when the practical matters begin. Because grief does not pause responsibility. The solicitor arrives. There are discussions about estates, about expectations, about what Francesca should do next. And suddenly, in the middle of fresh heartbreak, she is being asked to think about physicians and heirs and obligations. It feels cruel. You can see the pressure building around her. Society already has plans for a young widow, plans that do not include silence, plans that do not include time to breathe. And that's when Benedict's quiet strength turns into visible anger. The moment he steps in to shield Francesca from being pushed into seeing a physician is powerful. His voice does not explode, but it sharpens. His protectiveness is clear. He understands that she is not a problem to be solved. She is a woman who just lost her husband hours ago. That distinction matters. In that scene, you see the difference between managing grief and honoring it. Benedict chooses to honor it. He gives her space. He gives her dignity. And strangely, his restraint makes the moment even stronger. Because imagine if Anthony had been there. Anthony loves fiercely, but his love is loud. It takes control. It decides. In a moment this fragile, that kind of intensity might have overwhelmed Francesca even more. Benedict, however, reads the room. He reads her silence. He understands that what she needs is not direction, it is presence. As the family prepares for the funeral, the weight of finality starts settling in. Black fabrics replace soft colors. Laughter disappears completely. Conversations become whispers. The reality is unavoidable now. John Kilmartin is not just gone from a bedroom, he is about to be laid to rest. And the question hanging over every single character is the same one haunting us as viewers. How do you say goodbye to someone whose life felt like it had just begun? The funeral is where the shock finally turns into something heavier, something permanent. Up until this point, there is still a fragile